Another rookie is going to get his shot with the Royals. What do we make of Cam Devanney? We'll tell you in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering how the channel works, I bring you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes right here, as well as 60-second YouTube shorts after the game. And for about a month now, we've been doing the Royals Postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo. He comes to you live after each and every game for about 15 minutes, though I was hosting last night. Had just awful connection. For those wondering about why that wasn't posted, because when I went back and watched it, there really wasn't much to post. Too much lagging going on. Audio was cutting in and out. So I'm going to be spending the next few hours after this episode trying to workshop that, because unfortunately, once you go live, there's really no way to fix it while you're going through the entire episode. So I'll have it again tonight. Fingers crossed that we won't have any lagging issues. Again, I'll have far more time than I did last night to get everything set up, but you can count on those coming to you live after all of the Royals games. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So get started today over at FanDuel. It kind of worked out perfectly that we weren't able to get an episode up this morning before 12:30. I know I've been promising that, and at this time, it kind of just feels like empty promises. I can guarantee you that tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, it will be before 12:30. Because now that I'm not filling in with the postcast and doing some other stuff on the side, should have more time before I go into work to get these episodes churned out. But the reason I said it was perfect timing was that the Royals made a roster move a little bit later on in the afternoon. And one of my segments for today's episode was going to be about if they have any help in AAA coming. And then we got word that Cam Devanney, who everybody was very high on back in May and June, finally got the call to Kansas City. Now, he's not going to be in the lineup tonight against the Pirates, but the roster moves made a lot of sense, I guess, at the end of the day. Mark Canha, who's been dealing with an injury that's very comparable to tennis elbow, at least that's what Annie Rogers said, the beat reporter for MLB.com covering the team. Mark Canha goes on the 10-day IL. Cole Ragans gets moved to the 60-day IL, so it opens up the 40-man roster spot. It's not a setback for Cole Ragans. It's just a move they had to make to free up some space. And since he's already going to be on the IL for 60 days, no harm, no foul. And the target timeline, at least per Annie Rogers, was like mid to late August. So that's what hopefully we can count on for Cole Ragans to return. But for the immediate, Cam Devanney is going to get a shot for the Royals. Couple different ways I like to look at this move. Number one being, the Royals have tried this with a few of the AAA stars, we could call them. We saw it with John Rave. He was hitting incredibly well before the Royals called him up. We saw it with Jack Caglione, was hitting incredibly well before they called him up. We saw the same thing with Drew Waters, hitting incredibly well before he was called up. Even guys, out of the bullpen. We saw with Jonathan Bowen, he got his chance, and I would say for the most part, he's been fine. Nothing spectacular. Andrew Hoffman had been one of their better relievers. He hasn't gotten much of a chance, but still, we look at those AAA numbers and say, why haven't they gotten a shot? Well, for Cam Devanney, we're going to know why either he's earned this opportunity and can stay, or why he's a 28-year-old minor leaguer just now making his major league debut. I will say this, because that comes across a little bit snarky and saying that, an older prospect can't really be worth much. I absolutely can honor his path to the big leagues. And to grind through all of those years to finally get to this point, there is no shame in how old you are once you get to the major league level. And who knows, maybe Cam Devanney is one of those late bloomers, and he really can help this team in a second half push. Where he's going to be fitting in, where he's going to be penciled in, I'm not really sure. We've seen Nick Lofton play more of the outfield, even though tonight he's at second base while Jonathan India is DHing. But Cam Devanney's somebody that's pretty much just played shortstop and second base and a little bit of third. He's only got 2 starts in left field this year, so I can't go as far to say that he is an outfielder, an outfield depth for you. He's more of just super utility. And maybe the Royals just view him that way, where maybe he's a bit of a platoon bat. He will play a little bit on the infield. They might try him a little bit in the outfield and see how it goes. But the bat alone is something we should all be intrigued by. I thought that the power was certainly there. He had 18 home runs this year in AAA. He had an OPS that was north of 900. And yeah, he was a little bit older than his competition. Still, he earned his way to this level. And the Royals need somebody to catch on. They need somebody off the bench to show that they are worthy of a roster spot. And I'm not going into this counting on Cam Devanney to be this 280 hitter or translate the numbers from AAA to Kansas City. But the bar has been pretty low. I mean, John Rave is hitting under his weight. Jack Caglione's hitting under 150. Nick Lofton, despite a really good night last night, hasn't been hitting for much. Drew Waters got demoted. You need somebody to pop. You need somebody to finally work out, and maybe he does have the best chance to do so. I mean, he's more of a seasoned guy. He's a vet, but he was a good hitter last year, and he was one of the better hitters in AAA this year. And he's versatile. He can play all over. Is he going to be Nick Lofton 2.0, or will he be better than Nick Lofton? We certainly will find out. What I will say, though, just to warn everybody, it's unfair, as we said with Jack Caglione, as we said with John Rave. It's unfair to put the pressure on this guy to be the fix. No one should look to Cam Devanney of being the fix. What you hope can happen is he can carry, his own weight for maybe a month, 2 months. Maybe he's really good and he can stay with you the rest of the season, because you're still waiting for Michael Massey to get healthy. You're still waiting for the trade deadline to come around where you could acquire some talent to help your offense. But I will say the offense has played a little bit better in July. They have put together more, I don't even want to call them run spurts. I know it's not really a word, but you kind of get what I'm putting down here. They've had those 9-run outbursts. They've been able to get 4 or 5 runs. They've put together some more competitive at-bats. And I don't believe it's going to be as consistent as we're hoping for, but this is still more than what they were doing in June. And I will always believe that someone getting called up gives a breath of fresh air to the locker room. It kind of ignites something just because it's fresh blood. It's new blood in the clubhouse. And you've got a guy coming in that's played with some of these guys before. And I hope that he comes up here and he surprises everyone, and some of those advanced batted ball metrics look really good so we can believe that maybe a hot start is for real, because the Royals need it. The Royals need every bit of luck that they can get for a second half push. And if that's Jack Caglione catching fire, if that's Cam Devanney having an incredible second half, I'm fine with it. I don't really care who it's going to be. But I will say that Cam Devanney is one of those guys where, it's really now or never for him. We used that as our segment yesterday, or our episode yesterday, of it being now or never for the Royals. Kind of now or never for Cam Devanney being 28 years old. Either you can play at this level or you cannot. And that's the exciting part about it, because you do have that type of pressure. It's unfair to put the pressure of you got to perform immediately. But when you're 28 years old and you're a 28-year-old rookie, you don't have 2, 3, 4 years to kind of work your way through the system. Like, he's got to come up now and show why he can be a valuable piece, not just for this year, but for next year. And I'm rooting for him. Anytime you've got somebody that's just grinding it out like this, you're a guy to root for in my book. Like, 28 years old, getting your first big league at bat either tonight or tomorrow. And we'll see how good the defense can be. We'll see if he can play the outfield a little bit. But I like the slash line down in AAA. I like the power numbers. He was a top 20 bat in AAA this year, and he was able to carry that from March all the way up until he was called up at the beginning of July. So good job for Cam Devanney. I'm excited to see what he looks like in a Royals uniform, and we'll see if he makes his major league debut tonight, coming on as a pinch hitter or maybe as a defensive replacement. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, want to dive into Noah Cameron's success. Once again, he just shoved last night, and he's starting to look like a mainstay in the rotation and one of the top arms in this rotation. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. Before we get any further in today's episode, want to tell you about FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. And for my pick, I'm going to go for some of those West Coast games tonight, beginning with the Braves and the Athletics. I'm going to take the over on total bases for Jacob Wilson, who, of course, is starting over Bobby Witt Jr. in the All-Star game. And then I'm going to take the over on strikeouts for Robbie Ray, throwing at home against the Philadelphia Phillies. Feel pretty good about those two picks tonight, so why don't you get started tonight with FanDuel? I was at the game last night, which is why I was late in setting up the postcast, and it all went a little bit haywire with the connection. So I do apologize for getting that episode, or I guess the live stream, up later than usual, what you're used to with Chance. But I was out at Kauffman Stadium. I was covering the game for work, was down in the clubhouse afterward, had a chance to speak to Noah Cameron, had a chance to speak to Matt Quatrero. And once again, it was just a glowing review of what the rookie was able to do once again. And what an impressive rookie season we have seen from somebody that maybe you weren't anticipating it this early on in the season. And I know that it's July 8th here, so we can't really say it's early on. But Noah Cameron's been pitching for this team since the end of April. And I know that he got sent down after he, took a no-hitter into the 7th in his major league debut. But since returning, just nails. Just a steady hand in the rotation. And we can say that about so many guys in the Royals pitching staff. Like, they're just steady. They're not rattled, and he's a guy that has experienced some moments that certainly would rattle you. I go back to that start he had against the New York Yankees. He has Aaron Judge put one on top of the Hall of Fame, and it's a packed crowd. It's nationally televised. That's an outing that could rattle you a little bit. I've never seen a ball land up there. I believe that was the first time it had ever happened. And so as a rookie, I could mentally damage you. I understand it's Aaron Judge, and he's already got a WAR over 7 at this point, pacing for one of the highest we've ever seen in all of Major League Baseball. Still, it's your not welcome to the big leagues moment, but it's a reminder of how hard this game can be. No matter how great you think you're throwing, things can change on a dime. And I've seen young Royals pitchers before have an outing like that and torpedo, just never really recover from it. He has a start against the Dodgers, and Shohei Ohtani, to lead off the game, takes one to the fountains. Both of those outings were not good, in the box score. His final line wasn't as pretty. I'm more so talking about the games after that, what he was able to do, and to go into tough environments and pitch well. He pitched well in San Diego in front of a sold-out crowd. He pitched well against St. Louis both times. He overachieved there, where every time you face one team, the real test is when you face them for a second time a week later. And he was able to dominate the Cardinals in both of those outings in Kansas City and in St. Louis. And I'm not a mega guru when it comes to Baseball Savant and all the extra analytics. I would always like to say that I love to pull from a little bit of both. I like looking at those numbers to tell me more about a player. I also firmly believe in the old school styles as well. You mash those up together, you use a little bit of both, you probably can feel good about what you're evaluating. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe some people are far more on the analytical side listening. Some of you are far more on the old school side. But Noah Cameron was one of those guys where you felt early on, maybe he was just very fortunate. Like, his stuff looked good. His pitches looked good. but he was getting bailed out by some good defense. He had his major league debut where he walked 5, but never really was burned by it. He had some outings where he was able to get through 5 or 6 innings, only give up 1 or 2 runs, but dealt with a lot of base runners there. And now when you look at the 11 starts, a much larger sample size, he's got a sub-1 whip. His ERA is below 2.6, and I don't know if it's going to stay there for the entire year. But you are looking at somebody that is finding his own at the major league level. And that's tough to do, especially for pitchers. Like, it can be so up and down. It can be a roller coaster in that first year. And Noah Cameron's not really had that roller coaster. It's almost always been riding high. The worst starts he had was against 2 of the best offenses in all of baseball, and the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like, there's no shame in getting roughed up by those 2 teams. But the Royals have had to turn to him multiple times this year and say, go give us 5 to 6 innings. Give us 1-run ball. Give us 2-run ball. And he's had to pitch more often than not without any run support. Last night he got the run support. And after the game, he's talking with the media scrum saying it's the easiest thing in the world to pitch with a 6-run cushion. And he works quickly like that. He's efficient like that. It reminds me so much of Mark Burley, where he just gets the ball and goes. He's not always going to be the sharpest, but when he walks somebody, you almost see this ultra aggressiveness to the next hitter. And I understand it was the Pirates. It's not the best offense that he's facing, but he's seen some really good offenses. Seattle was a good offense. Now, he was 1 out away from 5 complete innings of shutout ball, I might add. It's a good offense he faced with San Diego. It was another good offense that he faced at the time in Minnesota. He was facing a good offense at the time with St. Louis, and he just continues to one-up himself. And I'm starting to believe more and more that this is for real. So like I said, the old school approach, I love the efficiency. I love working quickly. I love how aggressive he is and how poised he looks. The way he answers questions, the way he carries himself on the mound, it looks like a guy that's been in the league for 5 to 10 years. Like, that's the old school evaluation I have of him. Just the eye test, he looks really good. Now, the advanced stuff here, I like to see if the expected batting average is a bit high, if the expected slug's a bit high, the hard hit rate, barrel percentage, squared up percentage, all that type of stuff. One thing that really stands out is his, off-speed run value. So his slider is by far and away his best pitch. Guys are hitting like 105 off of it and slugging less than 200. Its run value is like 4 or 5. Like, it's incredibly good. And the fastball velo, though he sits around 90 to 94, if you can control it and you've got really good secondary offerings, look at Chris Bubic. Look what Bubic was able to do. He doesn't get quite the spin that Bubic does on all of his pitches, but his spin rate on the slider is north of 20 or 2,500. Like, that's an above average pitch. That is an elite pitch. And the only pitch that's getting knocked around from his arsenal is the cutter. The cutter has just been left middle too many times. It was a cutter that got hammered by Tommy Pham. It was a cutter that got hammered by Aaron Judge, and I believe Shohei Ohtani and Max Muncy also hit the cutter. It's not a great pitch for him. Now, guys aren't hitting 350 off of it. It's in the high 260s, I think. I'd have to go back and double check there. But you have somebody that is getting some ugly whiffs on that slider. I'd also make a pretty strong case that the changeup is his best pitch. And that changeup got some foolish swings last night. The slider has more break to it, of course, but that changeup's not far off from Cole Reagan's at his best, from Chris Bubic at his best. I've always felt that, Lucas Erceg has the most devastating changeup when he's on, because that horizontal run to it is just filthy. It's absolutely absurd. But Noah Cameron is getting into that territory where how many starts do you need to see before you buy into what he's doing? He's not going to win Rookie of the Year, sadly, because it's going to be Jacob Wilson likely. Even if he doesn't have the best of second halves, he's an all-star starter in year number 1. Maybe you just think that the park factor is contributing to his offensive success. But Noah Cameron is someone, being a pitcher, just isn't popping enough to the national eye. But it's what we talked about with the All-Star game. Just not everybody's paying attention to the Royals. And at some point, they're going to know who Noah Cameron is, because he's on a top 5 rotation and he's continuing to put up huge numbers and doing so while Cole Reagans is on the IL. Let's not lose sight of that. The Royals needed somebody to pick up the slack, and Noah Cameron has done just that. I tip my cap. He was phenomenal last night, and he'll still make one more start before the All-Star break. That will be on Sunday, I believe, against the New York Mets. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's dive into the comments that JJ Picollo made yesterday about buying and selling. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast, and this won't be the last time you hear from me tonight. I will be live after the game for the Royals postcast. Fingers crossed we don't have any internet problems throughout this episode. Of course, haven't had any issues. The positive for me is that it's pre-recorded, so if I did have any issues, I'd be able to go back and edit some things, just unable to do it during a live stream. But tonight, fingers crossed, praying that I'll be able to get through those 15 minutes without any hiccups there. So you can look forward to that after the game, whether the Royals win or lose against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I do want to go back to yesterday prior to the game, the comments that JJ Picollo made about the deadline. And I'm not going to go over everything. I'm not going to summarize and read you word for word what he said. But one of the more intriguing quotes that I got from this little media scrum was that he doesn't look at buying and selling like, well, if you're buying, you're adding talent, and that's the only way you can get better. Like, he views it as if you're selling, you're still adding to this team. You are still bettering your roster. And what I wanted to really clarify was, well, yeah, you can always make a case that if you're selling, like when the Royals were selling in 2023, you are making your system better by acquiring young talent for a guy that you're probably not going to have back next year. But for the 2025 Royals, what does that really entail? If you are selling, you're trading Seth Lugo, you're thinking about trading Carlos Estevez and Michael Lorenzen and John Schreiber, all these guys, what are you getting in return? Are you getting prospects, or are you getting guys that can compete now at the major league level? And one of the things I keep circling back to when it comes to Seth Lugo, because I'll be honest here, the number one trade chip by far and away, and the one that's going to generate the biggest return, is clearly Seth Lugo. I would even say with Carlos Estevez, you're not going to get the haul that maybe you think you will. This is a guy that's under contract for another year, and then he's got an option for a third year. And as I've said before, and I stand by it, the Royals expect to compete next year, and I feel they strongly believe that Carlos Estevez is going to be a part of it. And when they acquired him in the offseason, or I should say signed him in the offseason, they didn't really have in the front of their minds, well, if things go south, we're going to trade him after giving him a 2-year deal with a third-year option. It's always possible. I'm not going to rule it out, but I'm still feeling pretty confident that he's going to be staying in that bullpen for the second half of the season. Who knows what can happen in the offseason? I am strictly talking about, the trade deadline here. But Seth Lugo's the one, because of some top teams struggling in the starting pitching department, he could get you a pretty big return. But if the Royals are going to trade Seth Lugo, I'd imagine they'd be trading Michael Lorenzen. Because why would you trade Seth Lugo, who is likely going to opt out of the deal going into free agency? Why would you hang on to Michael Lorenzen? Like, Michael Lorenzen, as great as he's been of late, was great on Sunday. He's also on a 1-year deal. It's no disrespect to Michael Lorenzen whatsoever, but if we're trading Seth Lugo, then you should be trading Michael Lorenzen as well, and anybody that's on a 1-year deal. The Royals are also in that unique spot of they're 44 and 48 and might be thinking a second half run is in place. And I can tell you that, speaking from experience in that clubhouse last night, was a lively clubhouse, and one that I still feel is very confident something can happen in the second half. I don't feel that anybody's lost hope there. And so, as a front office member, as a GM, you want to take the pulse of your team as well. And of course, a lot of those guys are going to say, we can do this. We believe in ourselves, as most teams out there would. But you have to really pick a side if you believe it or not. And if you don't believe it, then yeah, I'd say try to get value for some of these guys. But on the topic of his comments, what he said, trading pieces, acquiring pieces, buying and selling, there is a world in which you could sell some of those guys and get players that can help you right now. But if you trade Seth Lugo and Michael Lorenzen, I feel you need to go out there and acquire a starting pitcher as well to fill this rotation out. There's no depth of the starting rotation left with Cole Reagans on the IL. And even if he returns mid to late August, if you trade Seth Lugo away and Michael Lorenzen, who's taking those spots in the rotation? I mean, I don't see the Royals being completely out of it on July 31st, even if they start to struggle a little bit. So you want to make sure you're still playing competitive ball in the second half. Who is making those starts in place of Seth Lugo and Michael Lorenzen if you choose that route? Now, I look to a team like the Chicago Cubs. They desperately need starting pitching, and they're going to be in a all-in type of year. They need to add more pieces if they're going to knock off the Dodgers or the Padres or the Mets or the Phillies or the Brewers in the postseason. They're just going to need a little bit more help. If you go to the Cubs, yes, the popular names are Owen Cassey. You've got Alcantara as well. One name that comes to mind, and this is not going to be a popular take because his numbers this year have been so bad, like take a guy like Ben Brown, for example, who got demoted to AAA Iowa. There's no spot for him in the rotation because the numbers weren't good to begin with, but someone who's 24, 25 years old, years of control. It feels a little Cole Reagans-like, where different team, of course. The Royals could throw him in the rotation, really have nothing to lose, but I'd be looking for players like that, guys that got demoted, bad numbers, but there would be a spot open in your rotation. You got years of control. You might be able to get a serious upside guy, but maybe if you acquire that player, you couldn't get another bat as well. So my summary, I should say here is, if the Royals are going to be buying and selling, like if that's the path here, you want to be acquiring talent, but also getting value for guys that you may not have next year, you need to be acquiring some starting pitching as well. It's not just about the bats. The Royals' success comes from their starting pitching, comes from its bullpen. And you're hoping the offense can add some talent and get two bats that could maybe get this group into the middle of the pack. You're also going to need some starting pitching. And whether that be young arms or established arms, you got to find someone to replace those two guys if you choose to trade them. So that's the fascinating part about this. I see all the time in the comments, and I see all the time on social media, go after 3 or 4 bats. Well, if you're going to acquire some legitimate bats, it might take you trading away a Seth Lugo or a Michael Lorenzen or maybe even a Carlos Estevez. But you still need to be looking for starting pitching. And the Royals, at least when I watch them, I have far more confidence in them developing pitching than I do in the hitting department. It's just the way things have been over the last 2 years, or I should say 3 years. If they acquire someone that doesn't have great numbers, I'm not losing my mind over it. If you acquired someone like a Ben Brown, though I would say it's still incredibly unlikely, but someone that is blocked, is not pitching at the big league level, is in AAA, you could look at that like the Cole Reagans situation, or somebody that's in the bullpen that you feel could be better as a starter. Those are all moves that I would be keeping my eye out on, because if you trade away your number 1, your number 2 starter, and you trade away your number 5, who in AAA is making those starts? It's not Rich Hill. It's not Kyle Wright. It's not Alec Marsh. It's not John Gant. Okay, it's not any of those guys. You're going to need to acquire starting pitching if you move those guys, and I would say I've got 80+% confidence in that happening. If you trade Seth Lugo, I feel you got to be getting a starting pitcher back somewhere, whether it be a guy that's a swing guy you can throw in the bullpen or in the rotation. You're going to need to find the inning somewhere. And from JJ Picollo's comments about buying and selling, and we never really look at it as you're not getting your team more talent or you're not getting better, you can be selling pieces and still feel like you're getting better as a team, though I also understand a lot of GMs are going to say that. So still 23 days before the trade deadline. The Royals right now are 44-48. Maybe they think they're still in the hunt, or maybe they're just being a little bit more honest with themselves and feel like this is not a year where they can get it done. There's still time, though, to go on a really hot run that can make things a lot easier on JJ Picollo. That'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we are going to be having an episode before 12:30. We'll be recapping what happens in tonight's game and maybe look at some more targets in the starting pitching area that the Royals could go out there and acquire. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.